My name is Ruthlyn Carter, and the night my son thought he finally broke me was the night he stopped lowering his voice. That's how I knew. When someone believes you are finished, they no longer bother to be careful around you. It was late, past 10. The house was quiet in that way that feels heavy instead of peaceful. I was sitting at the small dining table, folding laundry slowly. My hands ached, but I didn't rush. I had learned that rushing only gave people reasons to say, "See, she can't handle things anymore." The front door opened hard. Not slammed. Pushed with anger. My son Darius walked in without saying a word. He didn't take off his shoes. Didn't greet me. Didn't even look surprised to see me awake. That's when my stomach tightened. "You still up?" he asked, not kindly. "Yes," I said softly. "I was waiting for you." He laughed under his breath. "Waiting for what?" he said. "An apology." I folded one last shirt and placed it on the stack. "No," I said, "an answer." He dropped his bag on the floor. "I already told you everything," he snapped. "You just don't listen." I looked at him. Really looked. My son. The boy I carried on my back. The child I stayed up with during fevers. Now standing in my doorway with anger in his eyes, like I was the enemy. "You took the money," I said. He didn't deny it. Instead, he smiled. That smile. The one that wasn't happy. The one that said you can't stop me. "So what?" he said. "You weren't using it." That sentence landed like a slap. "I was saving it," I replied, "for my medical bills." He shrugged. "You'll be fine," he said. "You always are." I stood up slowly. My knees shook, but my voice didn't. "That money was not yours," I said. He rolled his eyes. "Everything you have is because of me," he said. "I live here, I help you." I laughed once. A dry sound. "You help yourself," I said. That made him angry. He stepped closer. Lowered his voice. The way men do when they want to sound powerful. "You need to be careful," he said. "People already think you're confused." My heart skipped. "What people?" I asked. He smiled again. "The right people," he said. That's when I understood. This wasn't about money. This was about control. "You wouldn't dare," I said. He leaned in. "Who would believe you?" he whispered. "An old woman who forgets things, or her son." I felt it then. The crack. Not in my mind. In my heart. I sat back down slowly. Folded my hands. Looked at the table. He thought that meant he won. He thought my silence was surrender. "Good," he said. "Now we understand each other." He picked up his bag and walked toward his room. Before he reached the hallway, I spoke. "Darius." He stopped. Didn't turn around. "Yes," he said. "You didn't break me tonight," I said quietly. He laughed. "Yes, I did," he replied. "You just don't know it yet." Then he disappeared down the hallway. I sat there for a long time after that. The house felt smaller. Colder. My chest hurt, not from fear, but from the weight of everything I had swallowed for years. I thought of all the times I stayed quiet to keep peace. All the times I chose silence so my son wouldn't feel ashamed. And I realized something that scared me more than his threats. My silence had taught him he could do this. I stood up and walked into my bedroom. Opened the drawer I hadn't touched in months. Inside were papers. Old messages. Bank alerts. Notes I had written to myself when things didn't feel right. Proof. I sat on the bed holding them. My hands shook now. Not because I was weak. Because I was done. That night, my son slept peacefully, believing he had finally broken his mother. Believing my quiet meant defeat. Believing my age meant silence. He was wrong. Because the next morning, I was going to break the silence forever. And when I did, nothing in this house would ever be the same again. Before I continue this story, kindly subscribe, like, turn on the bell, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I did not sleep that night. Not because I was afraid, but because something inside me had finally woken up, and it refused to lie back down. The house was quiet after midnight. Too quiet. The kind of quiet where every sound feels louder than it should. The ticking clock in the hallway, the hum of the refrigerator, the soft creak of wood when the house settled. My son, Darius, slept down the hall. I knew that because I could hear his low snore through the thin walls. Peaceful, unbothered, certain. He was sure he had one. I sat on the edge of my bed, the papers spread across the blanket like pieces of a puzzle that had waited years to be put together. Bank alerts printed and folded. Text messages I had saved instead of deleting. Notes I had written to myself late at night when something didn't feel right. Dates, amounts, times. Proof. For years, I had told myself I was being careful. That keeping quiet was wisdom. That mothers protect their children, even when those children hurt them. I see now how wrong I was. Silence doesn't protect you. It trains people how far they can go. I held one paper in my hands, longer than the rest. A bank statement from 3 months ago. A withdrawal I didn't make. When I first noticed it, I asked Darius about it gently. "Mama, you probably forgot," he said, smiling like he was being kind. I had almost believed him. Almost. That night, I wrote in my notebook. "I didn't forget, I just don't want to fight yet." I folded the papers back into the envelope and slid it under my pillow. Then I lay back and stared at the ceiling. Tomorrow, I told myself. Tomorrow, everything changes. Morning came slowly. Light crept through the thin curtains like it wasn't sure it was welcome. I got up before Darius did. That was important. I needed the house quiet again, quiet on my terms. I washed my face and looked at myself in the mirror. Same wrinkles. Same tired eyes. Same gray hair pulled back neatly. But something behind my eyes was different. I looked like a woman who had made a decision. I made breakfast quietly. Not for both of us. Just for me. That felt strange at first. For years, I had cooked with Darius in mind. What he liked, what he didn't like, what time he might wake up. That morning, I cooked eggs the way I liked them. Toast a little darker than he preferred. Tea instead of coffee. I sat at the table alone. And I didn't feel guilty. At exactly 8:17 a.m., my phone buzzed. A bank alert. Another withdrawal. My heart beat once hard. I didn't panic. I smiled. Because now I knew something important. He wasn't careful anymore. He thought I was broken. I didn't confront him. Not yet. I cleaned the kitchen slowly, washed my plate, dried it, put it away. Then I went to my room, put on my shoes, and picked up my purse. Inside were my papers, my notebook, my phone. Everything I needed. I left the house without saying a word. Darius was still asleep. That was fine. This part wasn't for him. The bank was cool and quiet when I walked in, the kind of place that smells like paper and polish. A young man smiled at me from behind the counter. "Good morning, ma'am," he said. "How can I help you?" "I need to speak to someone about my account," I said calmly. "Of course," he replied. "Right this way." I sat across from a woman named Ms. Harding. Her glasses were thin, her voice professional. "How can I help you today, Mrs. Carter?" she asked. I slid my papers across the desk. "I believe someone has been taking money from my account without my permission," I said. She looked surprised, then serious. She reviewed the documents carefully. Dates, amounts, patterns. "This is concerning," she said finally. "I know," I replied. She asked questions. I answered every one. Clearly, carefully, without rushing. I watched her expression change as the picture became clearer. "Do you know who might have access to your account?" she asked gently. Yes, I said. My son. She nodded slowly. I'm very sorry, she said. I surprised myself by answering honestly. So am I replied. She explained the next steps. Account freezes. Password changes. Documentation. I listened, took notes. This was the first time in a long time that someone spoke to me instead of over me. When I left the bank, my hands were steady. My chest felt lighter. Not because the problem was solved, but because I had taken the first step. Next, I went to the public library. I hadn't been there in years. The smell of books wrapped around me like an old friend. I sat at a computer and logged into my email. Dozens of messages waited. Bills, notices, alerts. Things Darius had said he was handling. He was. He had been hiding. I printed everything. Every notice. Every late fee. Every warning I had never seen. My hands trembled this time, not from fear, but from anger. How close I had been to losing everything. By the time I returned home, it was afternoon. Darius was awake now. He sat on the couch, scrolling through his phone like nothing in the world was wrong. You go somewhere? He asked casually. Yes, I said. I placed my purse on the table. He glanced at it, then back at his phone. Good, he said. I need to talk to you later. I looked at him. No, I said quietly. I need to talk to you. That caught his attention. He looked up. What? He asked, annoyed. I didn't raise my voice. Didn't shake. I simply reached into my purse and pulled out the first paper. This, I said, placing it on the table, is a record of money taken from my account. He glanced at it, then smirked. You said you were saving it, he said. I needed it. I nodded. And this, I continued, pulling out another paper, is proof that I didn't give you permission. His smile faded just a little. You're overreacting, he said. No, I replied. I'm documenting. That word made him sit up straighter. I placed the stack of papers on the table between us. These are records, I said. These are alerts. These are messages you sent. I met his eyes. And these are copies. His jaw tightened. You went behind my back, he said. I smiled softly. You went into my account, I replied. Silence fell between us. Heavy. Different from before. You wouldn't dare, he said finally. I already did, I replied. He stood up suddenly. Are you threatening me? He snapped. I remained seated. No, I said. I'm protecting myself. His voice dropped. The way it did when he wanted to scare me. You think anyone will take you seriously, he said. You're old, you forget things. I leaned forward. Then why are you nervous? I asked calmly. That's when I saw it. Fear. Just for a second. He grabbed his jacket. This isn't over, he muttered. I nodded. You're right, I said. It's just beginning. He slammed the door behind him. I sat alone at the table, staring at the papers. My hands shook now. But I didn't regret anything. That afternoon, I made another call. A legal aid office. They listened. Asked questions. Did not dismiss me. Bring everything you have, the woman said. We'll help you. I closed my eyes. For the first time in years, I felt supported. As evening came, the house felt different again. Not colder. Safer. I locked my bedroom door for the first time. Not out of fear. Out of choice. I lay in bed that night exhausted, but awake. Tomorrow would be harder. I knew that. Because when silence breaks, people who depended on it panic. And my son. My son would not give up control easily. He thought he had finally broken me. But what he didn't understand was this. Silence was never my weakness. It was my preparation. And now that I had broken it, nothing would ever be the same again. Darius did not come home that night. That was the first thing I noticed when the sky went dark and the streetlights flickered on one by one. In the past, his absence would have made me nervous. I would have worried, called his phone, wondered if something bad had happened. This time, I noticed something else instead. Relief. I locked the front door early, pulled the curtains closed, turned off the living room light and sat quietly in my bedroom, listening to the house settle. For the first time in a long time, the silence did not feel heavy. It felt earned. But silence never stays quiet for long when someone is losing control. At 11:43 p.m., my phone buzzed. A text. From Darius. Why are you doing this? I stared at the screen. Not angry. Not shaking. Just clear. I did not reply. Another message came minutes later. You're making a mistake. Then another. You're embarrassing yourself. I placed the phone face down on the nightstand. I had spent years explaining myself. I was done. Sleep came slowly, but when it came, it was deep. I dreamed of standing in a room full of voices, but this time, they were all quiet, waiting for me to speak. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of keys at the door. Not gentle. Not careful. Angry. Darius stormed into the house like the walls owed him something. I stayed in my room, listening. His footsteps were heavier than usual. He wanted me to hear him. "Mama," he shouted, "we need to talk." I waited until his steps reached my door. Then I opened it. Slowly. Deliberately. "Yes," I said, "we do." He looked tired. Red eyes. Wrinkled clothes. The confidence from the night before was gone. "Good. You went to the bank," he said. "Yes," I replied. "You froze the account," he accused. "I protected it," I corrected. "You had no right," he snapped. I tilted my head. "I am the account holder," I said. "That makes it my right." He laughed sharply. "You really think you can do this without me?" he said. I stepped past him into the hallway. "I already am," I replied. That made him angry. He followed me into the living room. "You're acting like I'm the enemy," he said. I stopped and turned. "You became one when you decided my money was yours," I said. His face hardened. "You owe me," he said. "I live here, I help you." "You take," I replied. "There's a difference." He clenched his fists. "You think people are going to believe you," he said. "Everyone knows you forget things." I walked to the table and picked up my notebook. Then I opened it. Page after page. Dates, notes, amounts. "I forget very little," I said. He stared. Then scoffed. "So what, you going to call the police now?" he mocked. I looked at him calmly. "No," I said, "not yet." That scared him. I could see it. He backed up slightly. "You wouldn't," he said again. "I will if I need to," I replied. "And this time I won't be quiet." He left the house again, slamming the door so hard the windows rattled. I sat down slowly. My heart was beating fast now. Not from fear. From adrenaline. Standing up takes energy when you've been sitting down your whole life. By noon, the calls started. Not from Darius. From family. My sister Alina called first. "Mama Ruthlin," she said cautiously, "Darius says you're confused." I smiled. "Did he tell you I went to the bank and spoke clearly for 2 hours?" I asked. She paused. "No," she admitted. "Did he tell you I have records?" I continued. Another pause. "No." "Then ask yourself why," I said gently. She sighed. "I don't want trouble," she said. "I don't want silence," I replied. She hung up soon after. Not angry. Thinking. My cousin Bernard called next. You trying to ruin that boy's life? He asked bluntly. I took a deep breath. He ruined his own peace, I replied. Silence. Then, I didn't know he was taking your money, Bernard said. Now you do, I replied. Call after call came. Some people defended him. Some asked questions. Some listened. And for the first time, the story wasn't being told about me. I was telling it myself. That afternoon, a knock came at the door. I looked through the peephole. Darius. And behind him, a woman I didn't recognize. My stomach tightened. I opened the door just enough. Yes, I asked. This is Keisha, Darius said quickly. She's here to talk some sense into you. Keisha smiled tightly. I work with families, she said. Conflict resolution. I looked at her, then at him, then back at her. I did not invite you, I said. She blinked. Well, This is my home, I said calmly. Please leave. Darius stepped forward. You can't shut her out, he said. I raised my voice slightly. I can shut out anyone I didn't invite, I said. Keisha hesitated. Maybe this isn't the right time, she said. Smart woman. They left. My hands shook after I closed the door. I leaned against it and breathed. That had been close. But I had held my ground. That night, I called the legal aid office again. They listened carefully. Then the woman said something that changed everything. You need to think about your safety, she said, and about whether he should still be living with you. The thought hit me like cold water. I hadn't allowed myself to think that far yet. But she was right. Control fights hardest when it's cornered. I barely slept that night. Every sound made my heart jump. But I didn't regret anything. Fear doesn't mean you're wrong. It means something important is changing. The next morning, Darius came home early. Too early. He moved quietly. Too quietly. I stayed in my room. My phone was in my hand. Unlocked. Ready. He stood outside my door. Mama, he said softly, we need to talk. I didn't answer. I'm sorry, he said. That word. It used to melt me. I went too far, he continued. Let's forget this ever happened. I closed my eyes. This was the moment. The one that had trapped me every time before. I opened the door, looked him straight in the eyes, and said something I had never said to him before. No. His face changed instantly. What? He asked. No, I repeated. We're not forgetting this. His voice hardened. You don't get to do this, he said. I nodded. Yes, I replied. I do. That's when I knew. He finally understood. I wasn't afraid of him anymore. And that terrified him. Because when silence breaks, truth gets louder. And the next step I took would force everyone, including my son, to face it. The word no hung between us like a door that had finally slammed shut. I had never said it to my son before. Not like that. Not without apology. Not without softening it afterward. And the moment it left my mouth, I felt the shift. Darius felt it too. His eyes darkened. Not with surprise. With calculation. He stepped back slightly, like someone reassessing a game board. So that's how it is now, he said. Yes, I replied. My voice did not shake. That shocked both of us. He laughed under his breath. You think you're strong now, he said, because you went to the bank. I said nothing. Silence had become a choice now, not a habit. You don't know what you're doing, he continued. You're letting people fill your head. I let facts speak, I said, not people. He clenched his jaw. I was protecting you, he snapped. I looked at him carefully. From what? I asked. He didn't answer. Because the truth was ugly. He had been protecting himself. He turned and walked away from my door. But instead of leaving the house, he went into the living room. I heard drawers opening, cabinets, papers shifting. My chest tightened. "Darius," I called out, "what are you doing?" "Looking for something," he replied. My stomach dropped. I stepped into the hallway slowly. "What are you looking for?" I asked. "My paperwork," he said casually. "You don't have paperwork here," I replied. He smirked. "Maybe you forgot," he said. That was the moment. The moment he crossed the line from manipulation into threat. I pulled my phone from my pocket, unlocked it, held it where he could see. "Stop," I said calmly. He froze. "You wouldn't," he said. "I will," I replied. He stepped closer. "You really want to do this?" he asked. I nodded. "I've already started." His face twisted with anger. Then something else. Desperation. He grabbed a stack of papers from the table and waved them in the air. "You want these," he said, "because I can make things very messy for you." I recognized the papers. My insurance documents. Medical records. Information he had no right to touch. "Put those down," I said. "Or what?" he challenged. I took a breath. "Or I call for help," I said, "right now." The room went still. That's when he did something I will never forget. He tore one of the papers in half. Slowly. Deliberately. Like he wanted me to feel it. Something inside me hardened. Not anger. Resolve. "That's it," I said quietly. He laughed. "You're bluffing." I raised my phone. And dialed. He lunged forward. "Don't you dare," he hissed. I didn't scream. Didn't cry. Didn't run. I pressed the call button. The sound of ringing filled the room. Darius froze. His hand hovered in the air. The damage was already done. When the voice answered on the other end, calm and steady, I spoke clearly. "My son is in my home," I said. "He is taking my documents and threatening me." Darius stared at me like he was seeing a stranger. I was. He backed away slowly. "You're really doing this," he said. "Yes," I replied. "I am." He dropped the papers on the floor and stormed toward the door. But before he left, he turned. "You'll regret this," he said. I looked him straight in the eyes. "No," I said, "you will." He slammed the door behind him. My knees buckled as soon as he was gone. I sat down hard in the nearest chair, breathing deeply. My hands shook now. Not from doubt. From release. Within minutes, help arrived. Questions were asked. Notes were taken. I answered everything calmly. Clearly. Without minimizing. For the first time in my life, I told the whole truth without protecting him from it. Later that afternoon, family began calling. Not gently. Not kindly. Angry voices. Accusations. "How could you do this to your own son? You're taking this too far. He made a mistake." I listened. Then I spoke. "One mistake is forgetting," I said. "A pattern is theft." That shut some of them up. Not all. My sister Alina came by in person. She looked shaken. "I never thought it was this bad," she admitted. "I tried to tell you," I replied. She nodded. "I believe you now." That mattered. Word spread quickly. Not gossip. Truth. And truth makes people uncomfortable. That evening, I sat alone in my bedroom. The house felt different again. Not just safer. Mine. Truly mine. But the hardest part was still ahead. Because when someone loses control, they don't always back away. Sometimes, they strike harder. My phone buzzed late that night. A message from an unknown number. You think you've won. You haven't. I stared at the screen. Then I saved it. Proof. I turned off the light and lay back. Sleep did not come easily. But neither did fear. I knew what was coming next. A fight for the story. A fight for who people believed. Darius would not accept this quietly. And the next move he made would force everyone, family, authorities, and himself, to face the truth he had spent years hiding. By morning, the story had already started changing. Not the truth. The story. That's what people do when the truth threatens them. They reshape it until it feels safer to hold. I knew that before my phone even rang. It was just after 7 a.m. when the first call came. My cousin Lena. I let it ring twice before answering. Ruthlyn, she said quickly. What is going on? Darius says you're accusing him of things that never happened. I closed my eyes. Already. I didn't accuse, I said calmly. I reported. There was a pause. That sounds serious, she replied. It is, I said. She hesitated. He says you've been stressed, she continued. That maybe you misunderstood some things. I felt the familiar urge rise in my chest. The old reflex. To explain. To soften. To protect him from consequences. I pushed it down. I didn't misunderstand withdrawals, I said. I didn't misunderstand threats. And I didn't misunderstand fear. Silence on the line. Then, I didn't know, Lena said quietly. Now you do, I replied. I hung up and stared at the wall. This was the part I dreaded most. Not the bank. Not the police. Not the paperwork. Family opinion. Because family knows exactly where to aim their words. By noon, the calls were constant. Aunties. Uncles. Cousins I barely spoke to. Some angry. Some confused. Some pretending to be neutral, while clearly leaning his way. He's your son. You raised him. Why couldn't you just talk it out? Each sentence was another attempt to pull me back into silence. I answered the same way every time. I did talk. He didn't listen. So now the truth speaks. In the afternoon, Darius made his next move. I didn't hear it from him. I heard it from the church. The pastor's wife called. Her voice was careful. Ruthlyn, we heard there's trouble at home. I closed my eyes slowly. Yes, I said, there is. She hesitated. Darius came by this morning, she said. He's very worried about you. Of course he was. She said you're confused, she continued, that you might need support. I laughed once. Not amused. Tired. He said that because it's convenient, I replied. She paused. We just want peace, she said. So do I answered. But peace built on lies isn't peace. By the time the call ended, my hands were shaking. Not with fear. With anger. He wasn't just defending himself. He was trying to erase me. That evening, my sister Alina came back. She looked exhausted. They're taking his side, she said quietly. Some of them, I replied. She shook her head. He's telling everyone you're losing it, she said, that you imagine the threats. I stood up slowly. He's counting on my silence, I said. Alina looked at me. What are you going to do? She asked. I didn't answer right away. I walked to my bedroom and opened the drawer. Pulled out my notebook. The messages. The saved voicemail. The screenshots. The bank records. I came back and placed them on the table. I'm going to speak, I said. The next morning, I did something I never thought I would do. I called a family meeting. Not at my house. Not at Lorraine's. At the community center. Public. Neutral. Witnessed. The room was half full when I arrived. Darius wasn't there yet. People whispered. Eyes followed me. some with pity, some with judgment. I held my head high. When Darius walked in, the room shifted. He looked calm, prepared, confident, like someone who had rehearsed. That scared me for a moment. Then I reminded myself. Rehearsed stories crack under facts. The meeting started awkwardly. Someone prayed. Someone spoke about love. Then all eyes turned to me. "Ruth Lynn," an uncle said, "do you want to explain what's going on?" I nodded. "Yes," I said. My voice was steady. That surprised them. "I did not call this meeting to shame my son," I said. "I called it because my silence has already done enough damage." Darius crossed his arms. "You're exaggerating," he said. I turned to him. "No," I replied. "I'm documenting." That word again. I reached into my bag and pulled out copies. Not originals. Copies. I handed them out. Bank statements. Messages. Withdrawal dates. Faces changed as papers were read. Whispers stopped. "He took money from my account without permission," I said. When I confronted him, he threatened me. When I protected myself, he told people I was confused. I looked around the room. "I am not confused," I said. "I am hurt, and I am done being quiet." Darius stood up. "This is not how it happened," he said loudly. "She forgets things. She gets paranoid." I looked at him calmly. "Then explain the dates," I said. "Explain the amounts. Explain the messages." He opened his mouth, then closed it. The room was silent now. Not awkward. Serious. One aunt spoke softly. "Darius, did you take the money?" He looked around, then shrugged. "I was going to pay it back," he said. That was the moment. The crack. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cry. I just said one sentence. "You don't steal from someone you love." People shifted. Murmurs rose. Someone shook their head. Darius looked around, panicked now. "You're turning them against me," he snapped. "No," I replied. "Your actions did." The meeting ended quietly. No shouting. No applause. Just truth settling where lies used to live. As people filed out, some avoided my eyes. Others touched my arm. One woman whispered, "I'm proud of you." That almost broke me. Darius didn't speak to me as he left. He brushed past me like I wasn't there. But I saw it in his posture. The control was slipping. That night, alone in my house, I felt something new. Not victory. Relief. The truth was no longer trapped inside me. But I also knew this. When someone's story collapses in public, they don't always accept it. Sometimes they try one last thing. One final move. And Darius was not finished yet. The house felt heavier after the meeting. Not loud. Not tense. Just weighted, like the truth had settled into the walls and decided to stay. I locked the door behind me and leaned my back against it for a long moment. My legs felt weak, not from fear, but from the effort it had taken to stand in that room and say what I said without breaking apart. I had spoken. Out loud. In front of everyone. And now there was no putting the words back where they came from. I walked slowly into the living room and sat down on the couch. The cushion dipped under my weight the same way it always had, but I felt different sitting there. Lighter in some places, raw in others. I replayed the meeting in my head. The moment the papers were passed around. The silence when the dates were read. The way Darius's voice had changed when he realized he couldn't explain his way out anymore. That was the part that stayed with me. Not his anger. His panic. I loved my son. That truth didn't disappear just because he had hurt me. Love doesn't turn off like a switch. But love also doesn't mean blindness. And that was the hardest lesson of all. The phone rang just after dusk. I knew it was him before I looked. I let it ring. Once. Twice. 3 times. It stopped. Then rang again. I answered on the 3rd ring. "Yes," I said. His voice came through sharp and fast. "You humiliated me," he said. I closed my eyes. "I told the truth," I replied. "You didn't have to do it like that," he snapped. "Like what?" I asked. "With witnesses." Silence. "You could have handled this privately," he said. I felt a slow, deep sadness move through my chest. "I tried," I replied. "You taught me it wasn't safe." He breathed hard on the other end. "So what now?" he asked. "You want me arrested?" I swallowed. That word. It landed heavier than I expected. "No," I said honestly. "I want you to stop." He laughed bitterly. "That's it," he said, "after all this." "Yes," I replied, "that's it." "You think they're on your side now?" he asked. "They'll forget this in a week." "Maybe," I said, "but I won't." He went quiet again. Then his voice dropped lower. "You've ruined everything," he said. I felt the familiar pull to defend myself rise. I pushed it down. "No," I said. "I saved what was left." He hung up. That night, I barely slept. Not because I was afraid of him coming back, but because my heart kept arguing with itself. One side whispered, "He's still your child." The other answered, "And you are still a person." Both were true, and that made the choice ahead of me unbearable. The next morning, I received a knock at the door. Not hard. Not angry. Careful. I opened it to find a woman standing there with a folder tucked under her arm. She introduced herself calmly. "I'm from Adult Protective Services," she said. "We received a report." My chest tightened. "Come in," I said. She sat at my table and asked questions. Simple ones. Clear ones. Did I feel safe? Did I manage my own finances? Did I understand why she was there? I answered each one without rushing. She listened. Really listened. She looked through my documents, the same ones I had shown my family. Her expression softened. "You're very organized," she said. "Yes," I replied. "I've had to be." She explained the process. What could happen? What protections existed? What my choices were. Choices. That word mattered. Before she left, she said something I hadn't expected. "You don't seem confused," she said gently. I smiled. "I'm not," I replied. "I'm just tired of being ignored." She nodded. "I see that," she said. When the door closed behind her, I sat very still. This was no longer just family business. It had crossed into something else. Something official. Something that wouldn't disappear with apologies. By afternoon, Elena called again. Her voice sounded torn. "He's staying with a friend," she said. "He's angry, hurt." "I know," I replied. "He says you chose strangers over him," she added. I looked down at my hands. "I chose myself," I said quietly. "For once." She sighed. "I don't know how this ends," she said. "Neither do I," I replied. Later that evening, a message came through from an unknown number. Not threatening. Not angry. Just a sentence. "I didn't think you'd really do it." I stared at the screen. Then typed back. "Neither did I." I didn't send anything else. That night, I opened my notebook again. Not the pages with proof. The blank ones at the back. I wrote slowly, carefully. What am I protecting now? I stared at the question for a long time. My son. Or myself. Because the truth was painful and clear. I could not protect both in the same way anymore. The next morning, I made a decision. One that felt like cutting off my own arm to save my life. I called my lawyer. Then I called the bank. Then I called the agency back. I did not rush. I did not cry. I did not second guess. I acted. By noon, the house was quiet again. But this time, the quiet didn't feel temporary. It felt final. That evening, I sat by the window and watched the streetlights come on. I thought about the boy Darius used to be. The way he used to fall asleep on my chest. The way he used to say, "Mama, you're the strongest person I know." Maybe he had meant it once. Maybe he still did. But strength scares people who benefit from your weakness. The phone rang one last time that night. His name on the screen. I answered. "Mama," he said, his voice different now, lower, cracked. "They told me what you did." "Yes," I replied. "You really went through with it," he said. "I did," I answered. Silence. "Then why?" he asked. I closed my eyes. "Because loving you should never mean disappearing myself," I said. He didn't answer. The line stayed open for a few seconds, then went dead. I set the phone down and rested my hands in my lap. I had crossed a line too, one I could never step back from. But for the first time, I understood something important. Breaking silence doesn't just change your life. It changes how people are allowed to treat you forever. And the next chapter would show me whether the truth I spoke would finally bring peace, or whether it would demand one more price before this was over. The days after my decision moved in a strange way. Slow in the morning, heavy in the afternoon, restless at night. Like the world itself was holding its breath, waiting to see what would happen next. So was I. Darius did not come back to the house. That should have brought relief. Instead, it brought a different kind of pain. The quiet that follows a storm. Not peaceful yet, just empty. I woke early every morning out of habit, made my bed, opened the curtains, brewed tea. Life didn't stop just because something inside me had broken open. But everything felt sharper now. Every sound, every memory, every decision. On the third day, a letter arrived. Official. Cream-colored envelope. My name typed neatly on the front. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside were papers confirming what I already knew. A formal record had been opened. Everything I said was now written down somewhere permanent. Truth has weight when it's on paper. I sat at the table for a long time, staring at the words. Case number. Reported party. Next steps. This was no longer just my story. It was part of a system I had once been afraid of. Later that afternoon, Alina came by again. She didn't knock this time. She rang the bell softly and waited. When I opened the door, she pulled me into a hug. Tight. Long. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I should have believed you sooner." I held her for a moment, then pulled back. "I needed to believe myself first," I said. She nodded, tears in her eyes. We sat together in the living room. No small talk. Just truth. "They're angry," she said quietly. "Some of the family." "I know," I replied. "They think you went too far." I took a deep breath. "People say that when the truth costs them comfort," I said. She sighed. "He's furious," she added. I didn't ask who he was. I knew. That night, my phone rang again. A number I recognized. My heart dropped before I answered. "Yes," I said. "Mama," Darius said. His voice sounded different. Not sharp. Not confident. Thin. "They told me I can't come back to the house," he said. I closed my eyes. "I didn't ask for that," I replied honestly. "But it happened," he said, "because of you." I let the silence stretch. "Because of choices," I said finally. "Yours and mine." He laughed bitterly. "So what now?" he asked. "I'm just cut off." I felt my chest tighten. This was the moment I had feared. The one where guilt tries to disguise itself as responsibility. "You're not cut off from being my son," I said slowly. "But you are cut off from hurting me." He didn't respond right away. "You always said family sticks together," he said. "I still believe that," I replied. "But sticking together doesn't mean letting someone destroy you." His breathing grew uneven. "You really don't need me anymore," he said. I swallowed. "I never needed to be afraid of you," I said softly. That landed hard. He hung up without another word. I sat with the phone in my hand long after the call ended. That hurt more than I expected. Not because I doubted myself, but because consequences always hurt someone, even when they're necessary. The next week passed with more meetings, more paperwork, more quiet conversations with people who asked real questions. People who didn't rush me. People who didn't tell me to forgive and forget. For the first time, my age worked in my favor. No one spoke over me. No one dismissed me. They listened. One afternoon, I was asked to give a formal statement. I sat in a small room with plain walls and a recording device on the table. The woman across from me spoke gently. "Take your time," she said. And I did. I told the story from the beginning. Not just the money. The control. The fear. The way my voice had grown smaller over the years. The way I had learned to disappear in my own home. By the time I finished, my throat ached. But my chest felt open. Unburdened. Afterward, the woman said something that stayed with me. "You're very brave," she said. I shook my head. "No," I replied, "I'm just done hiding." When I got home that evening, I noticed something new. The house felt peaceful. Not empty. Not sad. Peaceful. The kind of peace that comes from knowing no one will burst through the door demanding explanations. That night, I slept deeply. No dreams. Just rest. 2 days later, Darius showed up unannounced. I saw his reflection through the window before I heard the knock. My heart jumped. Old instincts flared. I took a breath, then opened the door. He stood there, looking smaller than I remembered. Tired. Defeated. "Mama," he said quietly. "Yes," I replied. He hesitated. "Can I come in?" I thought carefully. Not emotionally. Logically. "Not today," I said gently. His face fell. "Please," he said, "I just want to talk." I held the doorframe. "I'm listening," I said, "from here." He swallowed. "I didn't think it would go this far," he said. "I know," I replied. "I thought you'd forgive me," he added. "I still love you," I said, "but forgiveness doesn't erase consequences." He looked down. "They're watching me now," he said bitterly. "Yes," I replied. "That's what accountability feels like." He looked up sharply. "You think you're better than me now," he snapped. I shook my head. "No," I said, "I think I'm safer." That ended the argument. He stood there for a long moment, then said quietly, "I don't recognize you anymore." I met his eyes. "That's because you never really saw me before," I said. He left without another word. I closed the door and leaned against it. My knees shook. I slid down to the floor and sat there, breathing slowly. That had taken everything out of me. Later that night, I wrote in my notebook again. Not evidence. Not dates. Just feelings. I chose myself, and it hurts, but it's right. The next morning, another letter arrived. This one heavier. More official. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside were words that made my stomach drop. A hearing date. Soon. I sat at the table, staring at the paper. This wasn't over. Not yet. The silence had been broken. The truth had been spoken. But now it would be tested. In public, in a way that could not be taken back. I folded the letter carefully and placed it in my folder. Then I stood up, straightened my shoulders, and looked around my home. My home. No matter what came next, one thing was already clear. My son thought he finally broke me. But what he didn't understand was this. Breaking the silence didn't weaken me. It prepared me. And the next step would demand more strength than I had ever used before. The morning of the hearing arrived without mercy. No gentle sunrise. No slow stretch of time. Just a sharp awareness that today was different. I woke before my alarm, my eyes already open, my heart already awake. The house was still dark, wrapped in that early quiet that feels like the world holding its breath. For a moment, I lay there listening to the hum of the refrigerator, the distant bark of a dog, the soft sound of my own breathing. I placed one hand over my chest. Steady. I had learned to do that when fear tried to rush ahead of me. I got out of bed slowly and stood in front of the mirror. I didn't rush my reflection. I studied it. The lines around my mouth. The crease between my brows. The gray hair I no longer tried to hide. This face had carried secrets for years. Today, it would carry truth. I dressed carefully. Not to impress. Not to appear fragile. Just to be myself. A simple navy blue blouse. Dark slacks. Flat shoes I could stand in without pain. No jewelry except my wedding band. Habit, not meaning. I tied my hair back and nodded at the woman staring back at me. You can do this, I whispered. At the kitchen table, my folder waited. Neatly arranged. Statements. Records. Notes. Proof of a life that had been quietly invaded. I ran my fingers over the edge of the papers, grounding myself. This was not revenge. This was protection. Elena arrived just after 7. She knocked softly, like she didn't want to startle me. You ready? She asked. I picked up my folder. As ready as I'll ever be, I replied. The drive was quiet. No music. No small talk. Just the road stretching ahead, and the weight of the day settling into my shoulders. As the building came into view, my stomach tightened. It wasn't large. It wasn't dramatic. Just brick and glass, and steps leading up to a door that didn't care about feelings. That somehow made it worse. Inside, the air smelled faintly of paper and polish. People moved with purpose. Some nervous. Some bored. Some pretending this was just another day. For me, it felt like stepping into a moment that would echo for the rest of my life. We sat on a long bench. I kept my folder on my lap, both hands resting on top. That's when I saw him. Darius. Across the room. He looked smaller than I remembered. Not physically. Emotionally. His shoulders were hunched, his jaw tight. He didn't look at me at first. When he did, his eyes flashed with something between anger and disbelief. Like he still couldn't understand how we had ended up here. I held his gaze. Didn't flinch. Didn't look away. Then I looked forward again. I wasn't here to watch him anymore. When my name was called, my heart thumped hard once. I stood. My legs felt heavy, but they held. Each step forward felt like walking through water. Slow. Resistant. Real. The room was smaller than I expected. Plain walls. A long table. A few chairs. No drama. No audience. Just people whose job it was to listen. That mattered. I was asked to sit. I placed my folder on the table and folded my hands. Mrs. Carter, a woman said gently, we're going to ask you some questions today. Please answer honestly and take your time. I nodded. I will, I said. The questions started simple. My name. My age. My relationship to Darius. Then they moved deeper. When did you first notice something was wrong? I took a breath, and I told the truth. I spoke about the first missing money, how I doubted myself, how I asked gently, how he smiled and said, "You probably forgot." The room stayed quiet. No interruptions. No sighs. Just listening. I talked about the pattern, the control, the way my confidence had been chipped away piece by piece. I explained how silence had felt safer than confrontation, until it didn't. At one point, my voice trembled. I paused. No one rushed me. That alone nearly broke me. Then I spoke about the threats. The papers torn. The moment I realized fear had moved into my own home. I felt Alina's presence behind me like a steady wall. "Why did you decide to speak up now?" someone asked. I looked down at my hands, then up again. "Because I realized my silence wasn't protecting anyone," I said. "It was just teaching him he could keep going." There was a long pause after that. Not uncomfortable. Respectful. Then it was Darius's turn. I didn't look at him when he stood. I didn't need to. I had already seen what I needed to see. His voice was calm at first. Too calm. He spoke about stress, about misunderstandings, about how I had always been sensitive. I felt something tighten in my chest. Not fear. Anger. When he said, "I never meant to scare her," I finally looked up. I didn't speak. I didn't interrupt. But I looked straight at him. And for a second, his voice faltered. Just a second. But it was enough. The questions came for him next. Precise. Detailed. Dates. Amounts. Messages. The same cracks appeared. Shrugs. Excuses. Silence. When it was over, we were told a decision would not be immediate. More review. More process. I nodded. I had learned patience. Outside, the sky was bright. Too bright for how heavy my chest felt. Alina squeezed my hand. "You did so well," she said. I nodded, but my throat felt tight. I was terrified, I admitted. She smiled softly. "And you still spoke." As we walked to the car, I felt eyes on me. I turned. Darius stood a few steps away. Alone. He looked older than he had just hours before. He opened his mouth like he wanted to say something. Then he closed it. I held his gaze one last time. Not with anger. Not with pity. With truth. Then I turned away. That night, exhaustion hit me like a wave. My body ached. My head throbbed. But my spirit felt strangely calm. I had said everything. Nothing was trapped inside me anymore. I slept deeply. Dreamless. The kind of sleep that comes after something important has been faced. The next morning, my phone buzzed. A message. Unknown number. "You think this is over. It's not." My stomach tightened. I saved the message. Proof. Again. I sat at the kitchen table, sunlight warming my hands. I knew that message for what it was. Fear. Not mine. His. Because once silence speaks, it cannot be undone. And the truth, once heard, does not quietly go back to sleep. I gathered my folder again. Added the message to the back. Then I closed it. Whatever came next, I would meet it standing. Because my son thought he finally broke me. But what he had really done was force me to speak in a way the world could no longer ignore. The waiting was worse than the hearing. That surprised me. I had thought the hardest part would be speaking out loud, sitting in that room, facing my son while strangers weighed our lives like papers on a scale. But no. The hardest part was waking up every day afterward, not knowing what decision had been made, not knowing which way my life would tilt next. Waiting has a way of creeping into your bones. The days stretched long. Morning light came and went. Afternoons dragged. Nights felt endless. Every time my phone buzzed, my heart jumped. Every knock at the door made my shoulders tense. Freedom, I was learning, doesn't come quietly. It makes noise inside you first. I tried to keep a routine. I made my bed, watered the plants, went for short walks around the block. Neighbors smiled and waved like nothing had changed. They didn't know how much courage it took just to step outside. Some days I felt strong. Other days, doubt crept in like a whisper. Did I go too far? Was there another way? Had I broken something that could never be fixed? Those thoughts came mostly at night. That's when memories show up uninvited. I remembered Darius as a boy. How he used to wait at the window for me to come home from work. How he'd run into my arms and say, "Mama, I missed you." That memory hurt the most. Because it was real. And so was the man he had become. Both truths lived inside me now, side by side. Elena came by often. She didn't always talk. Sometimes she just sat with me, sipping tea, letting the quiet be what it was. "I'm proud of you," she said one afternoon. I looked at her. "Some days I don't feel brave," I admitted. She reached over and squeezed my hand. "Bravery doesn't mean you're not scared," she said. "It means you move anyway." The family had gone mostly quiet. No more angry calls. No more sudden visits. Just distance. That distance hurt, but it also brought clarity. People who only loved me when I was quiet didn't really love me. They loved my silence. One evening, as the sun dipped low, my phone rang. A number I recognized this time. My lawyer. I sat up straighter, my heart pounding. "Yes," I said. "We have an update," she replied. My breath caught. "Okay," I said, gripping the edge of the table. She explained slowly, carefully, what had been decided, what steps would follow, what protections were now in place. As she spoke, my body felt strangely light, like I had been carrying a heavy bag for years and had finally set it down. When the call ended, I sat in silence. No tears. No cheering. Just stillness. The kind that comes after something final. Later that night, Darius called. I stared at the screen for a long moment before answering. "Yes," I said. His voice sounded flat. "They told me," he said. I waited. "They believe you," he continued. I closed my eyes. "I told the truth," I replied. "You didn't have to destroy me," he said quietly. The words cut deep. But I had learned something important. Truth does not destroy, it reveals. "I didn't destroy you," I said. I stopped protecting the lie. He scoffed softly. "You always make it sound so simple." "It's not simple," I replied. "It's necessary." He was quiet for a long time. Then he said something I didn't expect. "I don't know who I am without you covering for me." My chest tightened. "That's something you need to figure out," I said gently. "Not me." He grew angry again. "So that's it," he snapped. "You just walk away." I took a breath. "I walk forward," I said. "There's a difference." He hung up. I sat there, staring at the dark screen. My hands were steady. That surprised me. The next day, a letter arrived. This one confirmed everything my lawyer had said. In black and white. Clear. Final. I read it slowly, every word sinking in. This was real. I placed the letter in my folder. Then I closed the folder and set it aside. I didn't need to carry it everywhere anymore. The proof had done its job. That afternoon, I went through the house. Room by room. Not cleaning. Remembering. This house had held my fear. It had also held my strength. Now it would hold something new. Peace. In the spare room, I found an old photo album. Pictures of Darius as a child. I sat on the floor and flipped through it. I let myself cry then. Not because I regretted my choice, but because grief deserves space too. I loved you the best way I knew how, I whispered to the photos. And for the first time, I added something new. And now I love myself too. That night, I slept with the window open. Cool air filled the room. I felt lighter than I had in years. But freedom always comes with a cost. And mine arrived sooner than I expected. 2 days later, Alina called. Her voice was careful. He's telling people you turned your back on him, she said. I sighed. He's allowed his story, I replied. I'm done fighting it. But it hurts, she said. I know, I answered. Later that same day, a knock came at the door. My heart jumped. I looked through the peephole. Darius. Again. I opened the door only a crack. Yes, I asked. He looked tired. Different. I just wanted to see you, he said. I shook my head slowly. Not today, I replied. You really mean it, he said. You're choosing this. Yes, I answered. He stared at me for a long moment. Then nodded. Okay, he said quietly. He turned and walked away. No anger. No threat. Just loss. I closed the door and leaned against it. Tears slid down my face. Not because I doubted myself, but because freedom sometimes asks you to let go of what you love most. That evening, I sat at the kitchen table and opened my notebook one last time. Not to write evidence, but to write a promise. I will never go silent again to make someone else comfortable. I closed the notebook. Outside, the sun dipped below the horizon. Another day ending. Another beginning waiting. I didn't know what tomorrow would bring. I didn't know if my son would ever truly understand. I didn't know if my family would fully return. But I knew one thing with absolute certainty. I was no longer broken. I was no longer afraid. And the final step, the one that would decide how this story truly ended, was coming. The morning came quietly. No alarms. No urgent phone calls. No fear sitting on my chest like it used to. Just light. Soft sunlight slipped through the curtains and rested on the walls of my bedroom, the same walls that had heard my cries, my prayers, my silence. I lay still for a moment, listening to my own breathing, feeling my heart beat slow and steady. For the first time in a very long time, I did not wake up bracing myself. I sat up slowly and placed my feet on the floor. The house was still. Not empty. Still. There is a difference. Empty feels abandoned. Still feels safe. I walked to the mirror and looked at myself. Really looked. Not the woman my family talked over. Not the mother my son controlled. Not the older woman people underestimated. Just me. Ruthlyn Carter. A woman who had survived something she once thought would end her. My eyes looked tired, but clear. Strong. I washed my face and whispered something I had never said out loud before. I'm proud of you. The words felt strange in my mouth. Then they felt right. Downstairs, I made breakfast slowly. Eggs, toast, tea. Simple. Peaceful. I set the table for one. And I did not feel lonely. After breakfast, I opened the front door and stepped outside. The air was cool, fresh, honest. Neighbors passed by, some waving, some just nodding. Life had not stopped because I spoke the truth. It had continued. That mattered. I went back inside and sat at the kitchen table. The folder sat there. Closed. For days now, I had left it untouched. Today, I opened it one last time. Not to read. Not to relive. To close it. I removed the papers carefully. The statements, the letters, the records. I stacked them neatly and placed them into a storage box. Not hidden, just stored. They had served their purpose. I was done living inside them. At the bottom of the folder was my notebook, the one I had carried everywhere, the one that had started as a place to hide my fear. I flipped through the pages slowly. Dates, amounts, questions I was afraid to ask. Then the later pages. Truth, resolve, promises to myself. On the very last page, I wrote one final sentence. I broke the silence, and it broke the chains. I closed the notebook. The phone rang just after noon. I knew who it was before I looked. Darius. I didn't answer right away. I didn't feel afraid. I didn't feel angry. I just needed a moment. Then I answered. Yes, I said. His voice was quieter than I had ever heard it. Mama, he said, I need to talk to you. I leaned back in my chair. I'm listening, I replied. I've been thinking, he said. About everything. I stayed silent. Not the old silence. The kind that listens. I blamed you for a lot, he continued. For my problems, my anger, my mistakes. My chest tightened. But I see now, his voice cracked. I was using you to avoid myself. I closed my eyes. That was not something I had expected to hear. I don't know if you'll forgive me, he said. I don't even know if I deserve it. I took a slow breath. Forgiveness. People talked about it like it was a switch you flipped. It was. I forgive you for my own peace, I said carefully. But forgiveness doesn't mean returning to how things were. He was quiet. I know, he said. I'm getting help, he added quickly. Real help, counseling, classes, everything they told me to do. I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. That's good, I said. But Mama, he whispered, I'm scared. I felt that familiar pull again. The instinct to rescue. I held it gently and let it go. Fear is part of growth, I said. You have to walk through it yourself. He exhaled shakily. I don't need you to fix me, he said. I hope one day we can talk without all this pain between us. I looked out the window. I hope so too, I replied honestly. When the call ended, I sat quietly. My heart felt full, but not heavy. That surprised me. I realized something important then. Closure does not always come with certainty. Sometimes it comes with acceptance. That afternoon, I did something small, but meaningful. I rearranged the living room, moved the couch, opened the windows, let more light in. I wanted my home to reflect who I had become, not who I used to be. In the spare room, I cleared out Darius's old things. Not in anger, not in grief, with intention. I boxed them neatly and labeled the box with his name. When he was ready, truly ready, he could have them. Until then, that room would become something new. By evening, the house felt lighter. Not haunted by the past. Not tense with the future. Just present. Elena stopped by around sunset. She looked around and smiled softly. You look different, she said. I feel different, I replied. She hugged me. Tight. Long. You're free, she whispered. I nodded. Yes, I said, I am. That night, I sat on the porch and watched the sky darken. The stars came out slowly, one by one. I thought about all the years I had stayed quiet. All the moments I had swallowed words to keep peace. All the ways silence had cost me pieces of myself. I understood something now. Silence is only peaceful for the person causing harm. For everyone else, it's a prison. My son thought he finally broke me. He thought my tears meant weakness. He thought my quiet meant defeat. But what he never understood was this. I wasn't breaking. I was gathering strength. Breaking the silence didn't ruin my family. It revealed the truth. It didn't destroy love. It redefined it. And it didn't end my life. It finally gave it back to me. I went inside, turned off the lights, and stood in the doorway of my bedroom. Tomorrow would come. With challenges. With healing. With work still to be done. But it would come on my terms. As I lay down, I whispered one last thing into the dark. I choose me. And for the first time in my life, that choice felt like freedom.